Greetings to everyone. I hope you are all well and welcome to our presentation of P7, where we will discuss a variety of topics. But before that, let us introduce ourselves first para naman familiar kayo sa amin sa buong duration ng presentation. I am John Clifford Piñera and I will be joined by my co-reporters, Mika Manalang and David Legaspi. The contents of our presentation will be the Unit 4 Module 3 entitled Induction, John Hospers' Introduction to Philosophical Analysis, Chapter 4, Section 5, or the Problem of Induction, and Unit 4 Module 4 entitled Generalization. The first part of our report will be discussed by David Legaspi.
Unit 4. Module 3 of Acuña's book tackles the topic of induction. Sinasabi sa principle of induction that past events can be used as evidence para makapag-formulate ng inference on the nature of things. The word induction itself has a lot of definitions, pero sa epistemology, it refers to the aforementioned principle, which states that events in nature are regular, not random. Ang ibig sabihin nito is that there is always an emerging pattern in the events in the universe. John Stuart Mill's principle of induction is said to be the origin of this principle. Nasabi din niya na that the course of nature is uniform, that the universe is governed by general laws. Isang example is using one's premises na nabuo through past experiences to formulate a conclusion that was previously unknown or unobserved. Isang example is isang tao na kumain ng Kapampangan food that will have the inference that most of the Kapampangans are good cooks. The next point is the nature of inductive reasoning. Inductive argument is one where the conclusion is made probable on the basis of the truth of the premises. It has been stated by Acuña na para makonsider ang isang argument as an inductive argument, it has to possess references from the observed to the unobserved, from the known to the unknown, or from the familiar to the unfamiliar. The reliability of inductive inference. Para mas lalo pa nating maintindihan ang induction, Acuña has given an example in his book. Assuming na mayroong box containing 100 marbles and they all have the same size, weight, and brightness, pero yung color nila is unknown. Through randomized selection, a marble is drawn which turned out to be colored white. The following claims have then been formulated. A marble is white is considered the truth of the claim since yung kinakailangang evidence for it to be true has been met. This is because yung representative marble is colored white, and this can also serve as an indirect evidence for the inductive inference. A few marbles are white. The conditions for it to be true have not been met dahil isang marble lang ang na-draw and you still haven't observed the remaining ones in the box, which resulted in it not being certain but just probable. Ngayon naman, assuming 99 white marbles were drawn, the general statement almost all marbles are white is certain since yung mga na-observe na marbles met the required quantity, which in this case is 80 to 90 marbles. While yung universal claim naman na all marbles are white is still not certain since there is still one remaining marble in the box na pwedeng mayroon palang ibang color. In connection with the previous statements pertaining to universal claim, para maging certain or absolute ito, complete enumeration is required. Ito yung reason why universal claims are easier to falsify than to verify because it is an arduous task na nagre-require na mahabang panahon para ma-prove as certain. The last point for Module 3 is about the required evidence for different levels of generalization. Sa context ng 100 marbles, Acuña has given the following as a guide. Para sa some marbles are white, kailangan ng at least one white marble. Para sa many marbles are white, at least 10 white marbles. For most marbles are white, kailangan ng at least 51% or 51 white marbles. para sa almost all marbles are white, kailangan ng 80 to 90 marbles. And lastly, for all marbles are white, complete enumeration is required. According to Acuña, words have nuances sa kanilang mga meanings depending on the context. That is why he has described claims as systematically vague. Sa context ng 100 marbles, the words a few and some have their own meaning, some pertaining to at least one marble as its required evidence, whilst a few pertaining to 5 to 8 marbles. Pero sa ordinary language, itong dalawang to are used as synonyms, meaning they're often used interchangeably. And one last thought that Acuña has given is no inductive inference is made when you have complete evidence for your generalization. Kapag mayroon ka ng complete na evidence para sa isang conclusion, hindi na kailangan ang formulation of an intelligent guess, for it is already certain or the truth.
Thank you for that, David. Ngayon na na-explain na ng mabuti ang definition ng induction, let's move on to the Chapter 4, Section 5 of John Hospers' Introduction to Philosophical Analysis, or the Problem of Induction. But before that, let us first differentiate deductive reasoning from inductive reasoning. So deductive reasoning, we can logically deduce the conclusion from the premises. If the premises are in fact true, the conclusion must also be true. For example, if everyone aboard the ship drowned and Mabel was aboard the ship, then Mabel drowned. Hindi natin alam kung nalunod ba talaga si Mabel o kung nalunod ba lahat ng nakasakay sa barko. But since deductive reasoning tells us we can logically deduce the conclusion from the premises, masasabi natin na nalunod si Mabel kung totoo ngang nalunod lahat ng tao sa barko at isa siya sa mga nakasakay doon. Sa inductive reasoning naman, the conclusion does not logically follow the premises. The premises merely provide evidence for the conclusion. Paano nangyayari to? The premises make the conclusion more probable but not logically certain. Kung ang deduction ay all about certainty, ang induction naman ay nagbibigay sa atin ng probability. For example, a stone fell 1,000 times. Therefore, it will fall the next time. Walang logical connection between the premise and the conclusion. Kasi hindi naman binigyan justification or sinabi ang reason kung bakit mahuhulog ang bato. But since nangyari na ito 1,000 times before, mas mataas ang chance na ang bato ay mahuhulog ulit. However, there is a problem with induction. According to Hospers, the fact that something has repeatedly occurred in the past is not often taken as evidence that it will continue to occur. And this statement is evident in a lot of real-life situations out there. One of the examples Hospers used is the kid and the playground. Let's assume that you have played at the playground several times a week for the past 5 years. However, at age 12, you don't consider it probable to happen for the next 5 years. Why is that the case, and why does induction go against this example? If we use induction because you have done so for the last 5 years, pero kung iisipin natin mabuti and i-consider natin ang hypothetical age mo in this case, which is 12 years old, we can foresee that your chances of going to the playground actually decreases. Why? One factor is adolescence. Habang lumalaki ang mga bata, they tend to go to the playground less because their interests change. Another example is humans and transportation via animals. In past centuries, people used animals as means of transportation. Yet, because of inventions, it was not probable that humans would continue to ride on them in the future. We know that humans have used animals as a source of transportation for a really long time. If I was a person who lived before the Industrial Revolution and used inductive reasoning in this situation, I would say that humans will continue to use animals to go from one place to another because we have done so for many years prior. Pero kung titignan natin at the present time, that turned out to be untrue. Why? Because we have had many innovations. We were able to invent machines, engines, and other machineries na tumulong sa atin para magkaroon ng mga kotse, bus, trains, and airplanes. Another example is an old man waking up from his sleep. A man aged 90 claims he has higher chances of waking up from his sleep because he has done so for many nights in his life. Yet, he is in fact less probable to wake up due to old age and weaker physique than a younger man. In fact, the inductive reasoning we have is the other way around. We know from past cases that more old people die at 90 than those aged 20. All the biological laws we have tells us that the younger man have higher chances of waking up than the 90-year-old man. When it's a law of nature, we expect it to continue to operate in the future unlike historical phenomena. But why should we expect it to continue in the future? A law of nature is defined as open-ended. Supposedly, walang katapusan ang law of nature. For example, natigil ang isang supposed law at year 2023. Then, according to Hosper, it wouldn't be a law of nature anymore. The fact that the law of nature has continued to occur in the past, we believe na mangyayari pa ito sa succeeding years. However, that still does not prove that there are any uniformities that extend into the future. Hospers cited David Hume's passage which explores this idea. According to David Hume, in cases of laws of nature, one proposition may be justly inferred from another. Usually, this inference is not made through a chain of reasoning. However, the connection between the propositions is not intuitive. Therefore, there is a required medium to draw such an inference. Hindi pwede na nakarating lang tayo sa conclusion without any justification as to why the premise is considered valid. Still, Hume also said that whatever is intelligible and can be distinctly conceived implies no contradiction and can never be proved false by any demonstrative argument. What Hume is questioning here is the acceptability of inductive arguments. The inference in inductive reasoning is neither intuitive nor demonstrative. So paano natin mapapatunayan? To say that its nature is experimental is begging the question. Hindi natin masasabi na proven, reliable ang inductive reasoning just based on previous experience in the past kasi yun mismo ang sinusubukan natin patunayan, the very nature of inductive reasoning. Paano tayo makakaalis sa conflict na ito? One way is to establish a general principle, which is the principle of uniformity of nature. This principle tells us, as the laws of nature in the past, so they will be in the future. It does not refer to particular events like coin tossing, kung saan pwede mag-iba ang consistent turning up of heads without a change in the law. We are referring to the laws themselves, or more accurately, the presumed laws. A genuine law of nature operates in the future as well as in the past and present. With this principle, we can say law X was held in the past, therefore law X will hold in the future. The argument is valid since the uniformity of nature tells us that certain kinds of events that have repeatedly occurred in the past will continue to occur in the future. But then again, why is this presumably always the case? Bakit natin ina-expect na ang mga laging nangyayari in the past ay likely na mangyari ulit sa future? How can this support the acceptability of inductive reasoning? Hume's explanation is that we are by nature inductive creatures. For example, when someone has been friendly or hostile to us in the past, we expect them to act in the same way again. May expectation tayo na ipakita ng isang entity ang same personality or traits na pinakita nila before. Then again, Hospers claimed that Hume merely provided an explanation to why we behave this way, and not a justification of our inductive expectations. How are we going to solve this? First, we have to remember that we can't deduce any statement about the future from the past. We also can't inductively show it, since induction is the very thing in question. However, we can give a pragmatic justification of it, not of the principle itself, but of our adoption of it. What we call scientific method is our best bet for making future discoveries. Only painstaking observation and experiment will enable us to succeed. We justify the adoption of the uniformity of nature in terms of the goals that would be realized by such adoption, the understanding of nature's workings, and lastly, the ability to use that understanding to predict future events and sometimes control them.
Thank you for that, Clifford. Now that we understand the concept of induction, let us move on to generalization. This is a common type of reasoning that all the people in my life have used previously. Therefore, all people have used this reasoning. The previous statement is an example of generalization. Bakit kaya ganon? Kasi ako mismo, pati yung mga friends ko, familiar na sa type of reasoning na to. At nagamit na rin namin ito before. At dahil dito, inassume ko na lahat ng tao nagamit na rin to. Kahit wala naman akong sufficient evidence. Let me give you a more thorough explanation by providing you with another example. Sabihin natin na may face-to-face class ka na at everyday, nakakakita ka ng 10 uwak. Sa 5 araw na nagkaklase ka, 15 na uwak yung nakita mo. At coincidentally, lahat sila color black. Kaya, pagkatapos mong makakita ng 50 na itim na uwak, gumawa ka ng sarili mong conclusion. All crows I've seen are black, therefore, all crows are black. You know the premise all crows I've seen are black to be true kasi sa 5 separate occasions na nakakita ka ng uwak, itim lahat sila. Pero, kung babalikan natin yung lesson sa induction kanina, you will know that the required evidence to prove the all claim is complete enumeration. Kaya, mahirap i-prove yung claim na all crows are black kasi it is physically impossible to enumerate all crows from the past, present, and the future to be black. And we are not aware of the total number of crows in the world. But let us take the word of Karl Popper. He said that instead of verifying, we should falsify the claim by looking for a counterexample. In this case, instead of finding all black crows, we should look for a non-black crow. However, falsifying the claim all crows are black is as difficult as verifying it because we are looking for a crow that is not black for both cases. Also, we should consider that this claim is knowable, hence provable. However, it is only provable in principle or in theory, but not in fact. In theory, you can start a simultaneous investigation in the world in order to be able to do a complete enumeration of all crows to discover if they are all black. But this would not be possible unless you have limited resources. Kaya provable lang siya in theory. In the topic of generalization, we must always remember one general rule. It is, most universal terms do not have the required evidence to completely verify their claim. This entails that you should be careful when making claims. You are not permitted to use the all claim if your evidence is only sufficient to make a most claim. If you cannot enumerate all members completely, then do not make an all claim. Similarly, you cannot make a most claim if you only have enough evidence to prove a few, several, or many claim. As a recap, let us remember that an all claim requires complete enumeration of its whole population, while for a many or most claim, rather, it requires 50% plus 1 as its evidence. Going back to the example of crows, a better claim to make is, all crows I've seen are black, therefore, many crows are black. Dahil ang use ng many ay vague, ito yung usually ginagamit to make a claim pag hindi ka sigurado kung gaano karami yung evidence mo. Remember from earlier, in the context of a population of 100, many refers to at least 10 samples. In making a generalization, we must always follow these two requirements. First, the observed cases or samples must be representatives of the whole class or population. And second, no conflicting case has been observed. Let me dive into them further for further understanding. Sa unang requirement, dapat sigurado tayo na yung sample na nakuha natin nire-represent niya lahat ng members sa isang population. Pero, mahirap masatisfy ito since it tends to be circular. Hindi mo naman talaga malalaman if yung sample mo is a representative of the population unless ma-enumerate mo lahat ng members and then ma-compare mo sila with the sample. Example, di mo malalaman kung yung isang uwak na nakita mo ay representative ng buong population kung di mo pa naman nakikita lahat ng uwak sa mundo. This problem arises because there is a possibility that a non-white crow exists but is yet to be discovered. Dahil dito, hindi naman natin masasabi na yung itim na uwak ay representative talaga ng population kasi hindi naman nila nire-represent yung non-white crows. Non-black crows rather. The existence of this non-black crows would then falsify the claim that all crows are black. People say that randomizing the selection ensures representativeness. Let us go back to the example of marbles from the previous topic. This means that if you shake the box of marbles before picking one, it will ensure that each marble has an equal probability of being selected. And as for the second requirement, it is quite obvious that the existence of a counterexample would falsify a universal claim. So, the instant that you observe the existence of a non-black crow, it would immediately deem the universal claim all crows are black to be false. Now that we are familiar with the idea of generalization, we move on to the fallacy of hasty generalization. Let me go back to an example that I made earlier. I said that since generalization is a type of reasoning that my friends and I have used before, therefore, everyone has also used this type of reasoning before. By making this statement, I have committed the fallacy of hasty generalization. I made the claim based on one experience, and I did not bother to further investigate whether everyone else in the world has used this reasoning or not. In making a hasty generalization, a person projects one characteristic of an event to also be the characteristic of the whole population. Nangyayari din ito, commonly, dahil tinatamad ang mga tao na alamin ang totoo, kaya nilalahat na lang nila yung statement nila. This is also why statements considered a product of a hasty generalization are considered to be the roots of many superstitious beliefs. Take for an example a common situation in class. Sabihin natin na isang professor, nagpa-class recitation siya. Binigyan niya tayo ng isang week para mag-aral. Ngayon, natawag ka sa receipt pero hindi ka nakasagot. Kaya, nag-conclude yung professor without consulting yung buong class na hindi tayo prepared. Kaya sabi niya, because your classmate is not ready, I don't think the whole class is prepared for this recitation. Another example is the case of a mother and her child with mumps. She took her child to an albularyo who then gave them herbal medicine. After a week, gumaling yung bata. Thus, the mother attributes the cure to the albularyo and claimed that the herbal medicine is better than those given by medical doctors. For both examples, the epistemic obligation of not accepting a statement or conclusion to be true unless sufficient evidence is presented was not internalized. Hindi open-minded yung professor and yung nanay sa pagkalap ng information. In testing the reliability of a generalization, we follow these 3 guidelines. First, are there enough cases to support a many claim, a most claim, an almost all claim, or an all claim? Second, have the observed cases been found in every possible variety of times, places, and circumstances? And third, has a thorough search been made for conflicting cases? For the first guideline, or are there enough cases to support a many claim, a most claim, an almost all claim, or an all claim, we must remember that the closer the number of your sample is to the required evidence, the more reliable your generalization. If you find that in making a generalization, you lack the number of required evidence, you must use the vague term many. Balikan natin yung example kanina. Dahil hindi mo pa nakita lahat ng uwak sa mundo, mas safe sabihin na all crows I've seen are black, therefore, many crows are black. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where a person makes a most or all claim, they ask them to present the required evidence. They would most likely fail to produce an evidence because it would require 50% plus 1 of the entire population for a most claim and complete enumeration for an all claim. For the second guideline, have the observed cases been found in every possible varieties of times, places, and circumstances? The wider the variety and the more random the selection, the more confidence we confer upon the generalization. Balikan natin yung example ng uwak. Kapag mas marami kang nakita na itim na uwak sa iba't ibang lugar at sa magkakaibang beses, mas may confidence tayo na sabihin na many crows are black kasi spread out sila at hindi lang nakikita all at once. Lastly, for the third guideline, has a thorough search been made for conflicting cases? Kapag mas masusi yung paghahanap ng evidence, mas may confidence tayo sa generalization kasi it can resist falsification. Remember, a single counterexample can immediately break a generalization. Let us examine one last situation. Charles Darwin made a claim which states, all white cats with blue eyes are deaf. This statement does not satisfy all 3 guidelines. For the first guideline, we do not know the total number of the whole population of white cats with blue eyes. Di rin natin alam kung ilan sample yung kinuha. Kaya, we are not sure if the cats that were examined are representative of the population. And as for the second guideline, we are not aware of the varieties of time, places, and circumstances of Darwin's observation, which he used as a basis of this generalized statement. There are instances wherein a generalization does not require more empirical evidence for its strength. When a causal connection has been established and explained, a qualitative change will occur. Because Darwin has established a causal relationship between the cat's lack of pigment in their fur and eye color and the defect in their hearing organ, his generalization was strengthened and had acquired a qualitative change. So, to summarize today's lesson, we talked about Chapter 4, Section 5 of John Hospers' book and Unit 4, Modules 3 and 4 from the book of Andresito, Acuña. Sa Unit 4, Module 3, pinag-usapan natin ang induction. Dito, sinasabi na past events are connected with the future in a sense na pwede tayo mag-infer sa kung anong mangyayari by using the past as an evidence. Dahil ang event sa mundo ay regular at hindi random, maaaring mangyari muli sa future ang nangyari na dati. Para naman sa Chapter 4, Section 5 sa book ni Hospers, nag-focus tayo sa problem of induction. Sa part na to, in-explain na ang inductive reasoning ay hindi palaging reliable dahil may mga cases na hindi naman ito applicable, lalo na sa mga hindi considered na law of nature. Yung premise, nakakatulong lang sa pag-increase ng probability ng conclusion, pero hindi niya ito ginagawang certain. Para masolusyonan ito, dapat i-justify ang induction sa paggamit ng pragmatic justification. Lastly, sa Unit 4, Module 4, natagal natin ang generalization. Ito ay isang common type of reasoning kung saan pag gumagawa ka ng general statement, we should be careful and only make an all claim kapag ang evidence ay completely enumerated. Dapat din natin iwasan ang pag-commit ng fallacy of hasty generalization, kaya tayo binigyan ng 3 guidelines na dapat sundan kapag nagko-construct ng general statement. And that is all from Group 7. Have a wonderful rest of your day and remember to stay curious.